Now, this video is not about Short Fat Otaku. It's just that his message is the one that popped up as I opened Sitter. And I realized that he's not the only one. It's actually quite a popular comparison to make right now, with a lot of people suggesting that the MAGA movement is compatible to Black Lives Matter. And that's very interesting because Black Lives Matter, depending on who you ask, is viewed as either an amazing thing or is viewed as a grift, or at worst, it was viewed as a destabilized movement. Again, it's really depending on who you ask. Like most people on the left will say that Black Lives Matter was a very efficient organization. Every single corporation in America was at least talking about it, and they were firing people that would criticize the movement. It went to the point where an LA Galaxy soccer player got fired, got pushed out of the group because his wife from another country tweeted a meme, and he was forced to apologize on behalf of his wife, then he was forced to apologize on behalf of himself, and then he got fired. The movement managed to secure millions of dollars in donations, and it was so successful that even today, we're talking about it. And so on the left, this is viewed as a very good thing. Now, the left may criticize the movement, but it never criticized it for what it set out to do. It never viewed its mission as being unrighteous. The criticism instead were levied mostly towards how the money from donations was used, that it actually went overwhelmingly to Act Blue, and it didn't actually go to rebuilding black neighborhoods or investing into black businesses. At least that's my understanding of the criticism, and also the grifting. Like some of the higher ups associated with the movement seems to have enriched themselves and bought themselves large mansions, which is why the left is saying that BLM stands for buy large mansions. But that is like the criticism from the left. Like overwhelmingly, it is not viewed as an unsuccessful movement or something that shouldn't have been done, right? And so when you compare this movement with America First, the criticism isn't something that like people try to assess objectively, right? Because most people, they view Black Lives Matter as a good thing. So the only reason you would compare the MAGA movement with BLM, I guess, is for narrative control. It's the same thing with the woke right. Like, for the last couple of months, a lot of people on the left failed to even understand what wokeness is. Like, I had so many people just coming up to me and question me. It's like, V, please educate me. What is woke? How do you define woke? Like, what is that? And then tell me what a woman is. Like they were genuinely like thirsty for knowledge because they didn't view woke ideology as a bad thing, and chances are they don't view it today. But all of a sudden it's being compared. It's like, oh, they're using the word woke right, and all of a sudden they understood what wokeness means. And so like this type of criticism is to resonate with right wingers only. I personally find the criticism to be lacking, and the people that are criticizing the MAGA movement probably, I don't know, were in a bubble and never understood why people keep voting MAGA. Because I've been following American politics for 10 years now. I have no horse in the race, especially on matters like immigration. But from the outside, I immediately understood what it's all about. Like, since 2016, the main concern that people who voted right-wing had, and a lot of them used to be liberals, by the way, was that they just want jobs. Like, it's literally that simple. They just want low crime rates in their communities, and they want to be able to get a job. They want to work. Literally, it's what it is. I know it's difficult to grasp, it's difficult to believe, it's astonishing, but you generally have people that want to work. And so the people that want to work, they're horrified because they're noticing how the future is bringing little stability and higher rates of unemployment. And this escalated with COVID, but it existed before that. I think the first time I even saw it being brought up was during the Obama era, where a lot of mining communities had their mines closed for environmental reasons. And this was absolutely devastating for the entire towns and communities that were set around the mining sector. And if you look today, like Tucker Carlson made a video about some of these towns, and they're just filled with drugs, filled with unemployment, because even if you want to work there, there's absolutely nowhere where you can go, right? Like the closest place would be a couple of hours because the town is isolated. It's next to a mining compound, which was shut down. And so it's horrible to watch what's happening there. And the media at the time was telling these people to learn to code. It's okay, you know, the mines have closed, just learn to code. And so when people learn to code, they find out, well, apparently there's companies that are hiring foreign workers, non-citizens, and they're doing this because they're hiring the best and brightest. So this is the narrative, right? But people aren't that dumb. Like, they're wondering, well, why isn't China doing the same thing? Like, is China missing out? Like, are they not losing the race with the United States if they're not hiring? And so they're looking into it, and what they're noticing, it's like, it's not about the best and brightest. It's about control, which is what companies want. It's like, okay, well, we're going to get foreign labor because they're less likely to unionize. They're less likely to ask for a raise. They're less likely to go to another company. We can always dangle the visa on top of their head, and if we don't like them, we can threaten to fire them, and then they have to return back to their homes, and it's very difficult to get here to begin with. We can also make it so that we freeze their wages. We can force them to work overtime. Like, we can suggest that, it would be nice if you come Saturday to work, right? And so when you're competing for a job, it's not just the skill that you do. You can be the best coder in the world. That's just part of the negotiation. The other part of the negotiation is like, how much do you want to get paid? How loyal are you? How likely are you to unionize? Like, those are genuine questions. And the idea that employers only care about the top 1% of talent is something that a lot of the MAGA people simply do not believe. In fact, I saw on Twitter, it's like, can you show us the person? Like, show us your employer that you genuinely believe no American can compete with. Like, where's the Nobel Prize winner that you had to look and find and you couldn't get from anywhere else in the United States? And that is like one of the challenges right now to these companies. Like, show us the employers that you believe couldn't have been hired and his position couldn't have been filled by an American citizen. And so the answer is like, well, yeah, but like, there's not enough universities producing STEM workers. And here's like the other problem. How is it fair? If you're an American and you go to a university, you gotta pay the tutelage, you gotta pay tens of thousands of dollars in order to graduate, and then someone from another country can do the university for free because they got like public education, and now you're competing with that person. You're in debt on the sum of tens of thousands of dollars. That person isn't in debt, and you're competing for the same job, and part of the negotiation is the wage that you're going to be paid. You probably have a loan, you probably need to pay back. The other person doesn't, right? How is it fair? And so the other thing is the universities itself. I saw the argument. It's like, well, America is only producing this amount of coders from the universities while this is the amount required. And I'm like, why do coders, all of them, need a university degree? Like, if you're hired to do some grunt work, if you're hired to do some basic coding, why exactly do you need a university degree? Because I noticed the mindset is towards university degree inflation. Almost everyone needs to have a university degree now for jobs that my parents, or even people from my generation back not that long ago, could perform without a university degree. And the answer is usually the HR lady. The HR lady, she looks into the degree, because if she hires someone and they turned out to be incompetent, they turned out to maybe do some gross negligence at work, then she is the one that's summoned and she is held responsible. And they will ask the HR lady, well, why did you hire this guy? And she goes like, well, look, it got a university degree. He finished Harvard or some shit. And then she gets off the hook. Meanwhile, it's like, well, it's someone that was self-taught, and you believe them? Right? So, like, there is this bureaucracy, which, indeed, for a job that normally wouldn't require a university degree, now you do need to do that. And so, Americans that feel more impoverished, that can't afford to get a degree, again, they feel locked out. They feel locked out because of the rise of AI and the upgrading of new technologies. They feel locked out over foreign immigrants with visas. They feel locked out because of the diversity initiatives that a lot of companies have, right? So, like, if you're a white American, for instance, and you're going for an employer, if the employer wants to raise its ESG score, like, obviously it's going to hire people of color, right, in order to be viewed as a company that's diverse. And then, maybe the middle job is just not available for Americans anymore. Maybe they can do the working class jobs. Well, the working class jobs have the same thing, right? Like, you get a lot of people coming from other countries, becoming truckers, construction workers, and so on. And the main issue is, like, a problem of representation. Because the American who wants to work, right? Like, they don't want welfare or anything. They generally want to work. They ask their politicians, like, well, what can we do? Why is this happening? And the politician says, well, yeah, but like for the lower class jobs, you guys are just too lazy to do it. You're too lazy. Americans are too lazy. These are the jobs no one wants to do. And so they're like, okay, well, maybe we can do the coding jobs. No, you're not smart enough for those. You're too dumb. That's what was said on Twitter, right? Like, you're too dumb to do those jobs. So, like, what jobs are you supposed to do? It sounds like the plebs in the Roman Empire. Like, the plebs in the Roman Empire were also suffering the same stuff because the Roman Empire had slaves. And so, if you have, like, slave labor, which didn't cost any wage, it was still costly because you had to feed the slave, clothe the slave, provide security so that the slaves don't break out. So, it was still costly, but not as costly as just, hiring Roman citizens. And so the plebeians were desperate because they were in the same position. And what did the Roman Empire do? Give them bread and circus. Right? Like, make sure that they're fed so they don't starve. And make sure that they're entertained so that they're complacent. And this is why the MAGA movement is getting traction. Like the whole thing since 2016 was to make sure that companies don't outsource to China. Because what was happening? You had companies in the United States usually lobbying the left for regulations. The more regulations, the better, in order for their competition to be unable to grow. And once that happened, a lot of these multinational companies, they would just outsource to other places like China or Mexico. They would move their factories over there. Because in the United States, it would be expensive to maintain all the regulations and environmentalist bullshit. And so, like, they would move their companies over there. They would pay the people there below an American minimum wage. So they would save money. And then they would import the product back into the United States. And so, like, the whole thing with the MAGA movement is to put tariffs on this in order to stop it from happening and move the factories back in the United States. This is literally the core of the movement. It's literally the main essence of why the movement exists, before even Black Lives Matter was a thing. In fact, if you want, you can say that Black Lives Matter is like America first. I don't know. But, like, since 2016, this conversation was going. And it's something that was happening even before that. It was happening even during the Obama era. And, while it's true that a lot of people that are pushing this movement happen to be white, they are talking about American citizens. Like, being an American citizen doesn't necessarily mean white. Last time I checked, I think like 60% of American citizens are white. So that means like 40% aren't. Give or take. And so the movement itself isn't upset, they opened a factory in Baltimore. And now people are complaining. No, like, I have not heard that. Like, if they were to open a factory in Baltimore, I guarantee to you, like, people from MAGA would actually be ecstatic about it. Oh, they opened a new factory in Detroit. No one would complain. Like, it wouldn't be a point of contention. And so they're trying to racialize this. And they're trying to compare it with Black Lives Matter. Now here's the interesting thing, like with Black Lives Matter. If you have a company that would refuse to hire, like it doesn't hire black people, right? Like, let's say it only hires only Caucasians. Only Caucasians. That's illegal. That's grounds for a lawsuit. And by the way, people like Black Lives Matter and like the feminist movement, they were only concerned about hiring minorities in positions of power, like hiring minorities in leadership positions. Right now, it seems that the MAGA movement just wants jobs. Like, that's it. They don't care about the leadership positions, and if they do, I haven't heard them express that. And the problem is, like, the politicians aren't giving solutions. That's the biggest issue. Because, again, the essence of the movement was like, can we not have the factories back? Can we not have the manufacturing industry back? Why do they want the manufacturing industry back? To get jobs. Is it like a Marxist thing to want jobs? Is it a Marxist thing to try to revert it back to the 90s? I don't think it's a Marxist thing. I mean, just because it has a class issue, they don't want to abolish private property. I haven't heard them say that they want to take down the system and start a revolution. No, they're using identity politics. But the identity politics they're using, it seems to be citizens versus not citizens. And the question is, like, is the nation a plot of land where transactions happen, or is it more like a community? Basically, the question is, should a nation state be a country that has an economy, or should the nation state be an economy that happens to be a country? That's the main question that's being discussed right now. Literally that. And so, the fact that they're using identity politics isn't really that bewildering for me. I mean, you had identity politics since Occupy Wall Street. It was heavily drilled into the American brain. Like, before identity politics, because I grew up with a lot of American shows, I remember an ad where the grandfather calls the grandson anti-Semitic because the grandson refers to one of his classmates as the Jewish kid. And the grandfather corrects him and says you should refer to him any way else. You should say, like, the kid in the red jacket or something like that. You gotta be colorblind. Like, that was what the 90s was preaching, colorblindness. And then you had, like, the diversity people that were like, no. If you don't see race, that's racism. Like, colorblindness is racism. You gotta see race. And now you have an entire generation that actually does see race. And they also vote. And so you should be happy that the only grievance that they have seems to be the fact that they want jobs. They don't even want, like, they're not even asking for, like, leadership, positions of power, percentages. They just want jobs. That's it. And so the question, it can be like, all right, why should a company hire them? Because if you're a private company, you can do whatever you want, right? And the other complaint that they have is like, all right, well, let us start our own businesses then. What if we group together and we put money together and we start a business? Oh, we can't because regulations, right? Regulations. So you have a system with too many regulations so that they can't open their own businesses to compete. I would understand that they wouldn't be able to compete anyway because they would be scoffing at the top 1% of talent, right? But they can't start their own businesses. They can't compete. They can't get a job because of AI, because of, well, they're too lazy to get this job. They're not smart enough to get this other job. So, like, what is their future? What exactly are you planning to tell them? And, maybe there is a solution that I haven't figured out. Because I'm not that smart as politicians. But it seems that the politicians constantly laugh and mock and ridicule them. And so, everyone is now bewildered that they're acting this way when the whole reason they voted for Trump, like, the main thing was to tariff China so that the manufacturing industry comes back into the US. And now everyone is surprised and is shocked. Oh, wow, like, these people, they genuinely want jobs. They don't want You know, the question is like, should American citizens be privileged in their own country? Because that's another thing that we've been talking here in Europe. It's like, notice how if you're a Romanian worker, you're going to compete mostly with Romanians for a job, right? If you're a Bulgarian worker, you're mostly going to compete with Bulgarian. Now, there are some exceptions, of course. But, like, usually this is the standard, right? Like, if you're in a nation, you're mostly competing for the jobs with other people from that nation. But if you're from the United States, apparently you have to compete with the rest of the world. And competing doesn't mean, because this is another thing that they do, the sleight of hand, like competing, it means you gotta be better than them. Right? So like if you're competing with a truck driver, you gotta drive faster, you gotta drive better, you gotta drive safer. No. Competing also means on the wage. Competing also means on the wage that you're asking. I've already gone through it. It also means the loyalty, like the lack of ability to switch companies, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, I find the comparison with Black Lives Matter to be just done for narrative control. I don't think like this is an observation that this is what people were studying and they came up to the conclusion, yeah, sure, they're very similar in ideology, very similar in organization. No, it's just narrative control. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.